Hello and welcome to Secrets Mystery Manor. I'm your host, Psychic Zelda Kelly. Warning: this podcast may contain sensitive material. It is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer and listening discretion is advised. Hello and welcome back to Secrets Mystery Manor. I'm your host, Zelda Kelly, and today I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me personally. And so I want to warn you right now, fair warning, it is graphic. So if you have a weak stomach or faint at heart, please click off now. This is a very sad and horrible story. But with that being said, we're going to trek along because I know there are some of you that would love to hear this. And it's a story that I think that is very important with a very odd ending. So without further ado, let's get into a murder, a suicide, and an unwelcomed guest. So in October of 1987, I was living in Charleston, South Carolina, working as a paralegal on the United States Naval base that was there. I was married to a Navy commander at the time, and he was, I believe, out to sea for a short run. Now, this was October. I was getting ready to go on base, and I got T-boned at an intersection. So it actually was it. Yeah, it was at an intersection. Someone was trying to cross through and came through and hit me broadside. Well, I landed on crutches, and nothing was broken, but it sure did mess my left hip up. And believe me, to this day, I can tell you when it's going to rain or when we have a weather fluctuation or any of those funny things. Believe me. So I was on crutches, and the Navy ball was coming up. Now, the Navy... So this was the Navy Marine Corps ball. It was a big deal, very fun to go to. A lot of people, enlisted officers, you name it. A lot of people were there. So again, this is in December, about a week before Christmas, actually a few days before Christmas, and this was October. I'm on crutches. My husband is out to sea, and I needed a dress. Well, all the other wives had dresses, except for me. I was working, running a household, traveling back and forth from Charleston, South Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida to see my family. And it really got down to the wire. And I hadn't found a dress, and here it was December. So I started my search. Now, of course, at that time, we didn't have online. I couldn't look online, and it was the daunting task of trying to go around to all these shops and places on crutches. That was not good. Now, I was healing and getting better, and I was really watching and taking care of myself because, of course, at the ball, I wanted to dance. So on this one morning, I got up pretty early and decided I was going to go get a dress. It was December 11th of 1987. And I knew that I had to get a dress because the ball was now in less than 4 or 5 days. And I was going to be in big trouble if I didn't go. So come around 8:45, I pull into this shopping center, and it was the shopping center that had the grocery store, which happened to be a Kroger. It had a grocery store and it had a jewelry shop and a few other little shops, and it had this one boutique that I had seen several times every time I had shopped at Kroger. This was in Mount Pleasant. We were living in Mount Pleasant. We had a beautiful home, and when you went out on the dock, the boat dock, you could see it was a straight shot to Fort Sumter. It was just stunningly beautiful. So I'm waiting and waiting, and I'm thinking, okay, so I love this shop. I pull up, and I had backed in, so I was facing the shop. And from out of the shop comes this woman holding this little boy. He was about 4 years old, and he was just adorable. I won't forget him. He was blonde-haired, smiling, happy, and it was obvious that that was his grandmother. The next thing I see is this man, like jump into the doorway and race in there, and I noticed that he turned around and locked the door. I didn't really think too much about it. I was sitting in my car and I was writing some things down and going over my day timer at that time. Didn't have iPads or any of those things. So I had my day timer and was working, and I had called into the base and said, look, I'm not going to come in today. I am working on my dress. That's my project. So my boss, the lieutenant, who was a JAG officer, a Navy JAG lawyer, said, that's okay, you just go ahead, take your day. We're not that busy today anyway, and I'm probably going to take off early, no worries. All right, so I was home free. That was my mission that day. Unfortunately, it was probably a day that I'll never forget for the rest of my life. And so now it's 9 o'clock. Stores are opening, and I'm seeing the plaza getting a little busy with people going in and out of shops, and the grocery store was starting to pick up. And I hobble up onto the sidewalk and put my hand on the door to go in. Now I'm hearing this arguing going on, and I didn't really focus on that. It didn't really register with me. And I put my hand on the door, and I see this young man in the store who was arguing with this other man who was face to face. And obviously there was a woman that was in the store as well. I could hear her voice, but I couldn't see her over the racks of clothing. So this young man turns and looks at me, and he's putting his hands out and yelling at me, don't come in, don't come in, don't come in. And just then, the other man takes one look at me, and he grabs this woman. She's screaming. He comes to the front of the store, and all of this I'm watching in disbelief because it was happening so fast. Brings her to the front of the store, throws her down on the floor, takes out a gun, and shoots her. He looks at me, and I literally dropped my crutches and took off running down the sidewalk. You can bet I forgot all about the hip injury at that time. The closest store that I found that had been opened was a jewelry store. I run into the jewelry store, but as I was running from the boutique shop to the jewelry store, I heard another gunshot, and my heart just fell because I thought, oh my gosh, he shot that young man. And I was in shock. I was running. I ran into this jewelry store, and the first thing that I say is, I'm yelling, I need a man. I need a man. Now, that's kind of funny. Now, I'm going to set the center stage here. This was the 80s. This was Madonna music and Robert Palmer music and all of these great, just fashion just took another turn. And believe me, I I was looking trendy. It was warm down there, so I had a pair of shorts on, and I had my cute little tennis shoes that matched my sweatshirt that was big, wild, bright flowers. And my hair was short. I had these huge, great big earrings. And yeah, I looked like I belonged on MTV at that time. Believe me, I thought I looked cute. Anyway, I run in there and I'm yelling, I need a man, I need a man. Because in my mind, it was going to take not only one man, but probably several to hold down this guy or to wrestle this guy or to do something. And this woman is looking at me from behind the counter in horror. And she's like, what's going on? And I said, you need to call the police. Someone was shot. And she gets on the phone and she's calling the police and I'm hearing her. Now, I don't know what possessed me to do this, but I go back outside because the first thing I'm thinking of is I'm going to get in my car and I'm leaving. And then it started dawning on me. This guy saw me. Who he could identify. He could be out in the parking lot. He could shoot me. I'm a witness. Look at me. It's not like I can fade into the crowd. I have this loud flowered shirt and these flowered little tennis shoes. And while I thought I was cute, at that particular moment, I wanted to hide in the worst way. And as I'm skipping down the sidewalk, I see my crutches lying on the sidewalk. And I'm thinking, oh Lord, I'm not going to go get those. I just have got to scoot around here and I've got to get to my car and I've got to call the police and I've got to go home. Well, just then, I see the door open and I thought, oh God. And as the door opened, it was her. She had gotten up and had come outside. She was holding her neck. The bullet went through her neck. It was like ear to ear at the jawline through her neck. And I can tell you blood was everywhere. It was worse than a B movie. And I'm standing there and she's looking at me and mouthing, help me, help me. She couldn't talk. Obviously, it severed her trachea and probably her vocal cords and probably her artery and jugular vein, whatever is up there. She was bleeding profusely. So I run toward her because I thought, at this point, I can't leave her. I run toward her and I kneel. She falls on the sidewalk. I'm kneeling down on the sidewalk and I hold her neck. I'm holding her neck and hoping that air is not escaping. And now her eyes are rolling back into her head. And I'm praying over her and I'm saying, you got to hold on, you got to hold on. And at this time, literally blood was everywhere. My shirt, my shorts, my shoes, my hair, my face, my arms, everywhere. It was going everywhere. So I'm kneeling, and now her eyes go back into her head. And I don't feel, I'm checking for pulse, and I start giving her, I start doing this heart thing that you do. I'm getting so emotionally involved, I can't even think about this right now. So I'm starting to do this heart maneuver. And I couldn't give her mouth to mouth because, first of all, her mouth was full of blood, and I just couldn't do that, and it wouldn't have helped because you could hear it gurgling. So I was doing this on the sidewalk, holding and praying, and then all of a sudden, I hear noises behind me. And I start thinking, oh God, Now, I want you to know that, when you hear people say, right before I died or right before you die, your life flashes before your eyes, that is exactly what was happening to me. Because the first thing that I'm thinking of is, oh dear God, please take care of my husband. Let him know that I love him. Oh dear God, please take care of my daughter. Because I had a young daughter at the time. She was maybe, I think, 4 or 5 at the time. No, she was 7. She was 7 at the time and in school. And I'm thinking, oh God, take care of my daughter. And I'm going down the family, and my mother had just gotten diagnosed with a severe liver disease. So I'm thinking about her, and I'm talking about forgiveness and mercy, and then all of a sudden I hear these footsteps racing toward me. I look up, and there was an off-duty police officer that had been shopping at the Kroger grocery store who was running toward me. And he starts to look at me, and he's saying, that's okay, that's okay. Don't worry, don't worry, an ambulance. And now I'm hearing sirens. The ambulance is on its way. Now, police are just screeching and scrawling in, and sirens and everything else is going on. And I'm starting to yell, where is he? Where is he? And nobody is saying anything. And I'm like, he's going to shoot me. He's going to kill me. I saw him. I am a witness. And I was hysterical at this point. So these 2 police officers, bless their hearts, don't even know who they are. I'm sure they're retired by now. Grab a hold of me, and they take me back to this jewelry store. Now, it wasn't funny at the time, but it now, well, I guess you have to have a sense of humor, right? So we go back into the jewelry store, and this woman takes one look at me and faints. And this man is looking, and the police officer says, no, 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 she's not shot. She's okay. Do you have a bathroom? She needs to wash her hands. And so they led me back to this dingy little dark bathroom, and I take one look in the mirror and was literally horrified. I was not that person that I started out that day to be. Well, the next thing you know, I'm thinking about my husband, and all these things start going through my mind, and this one police officer says, where can we reach your husband? And I gave him the number to the ship, and my husband was actually the officer of watch that day, so he was going to be off that day, or he was going to be on the ship that day and all night, and so he was in his work khakis, and they called him. Well, when they called him, somebody had told him that I was shot. That they didn't tell him that so that was the mistranslation of someone calling and saying, oh, well, your wife was shot. So my poor husband was in his working khakis and only had his dress blues on board. He gets dressed up in his dress blues, and he comes to the scene. And he sees me, and he about faints. He was as white, pale as a sheet. And I could tell the look on his face. And because I was still a mess. I mean, I washed my hands, I washed my face, but the smell that went with it, and my clothes, and it was not good. So, as I come out of the bathroom, I see my husband had been there on the scene, and he comes up to me. Of course, I'm not going to hug him. I'm a bloody mess. He's got his dress blues on, and he's, got my back, and he's, patting me and assuring me and everything else, and they put me in the back of this squad car. The police officers were in the squad car, and they were coming in and out of the shop and all this other, and they had taken this lady away by ambulance, and there was literally blood all over, on the door, in the store, all over the sidewalk, all over the street in front of the sidewalk. It was a horrific situation. And the reason that I cannot, to this day, watch a B slasher movie because it is so real. So the police officers, as kind as they were, there's I'm sitting in the back seat. He comes up and he says, "Ma'am, we need you to come into the store." And I looked at him, bless his heart, and I said, "Are you kidding me? I'm not going to identify anybody. This guy, you will let him loose and he will kill me." Now, I was in shock. I was hysterical. I was a mess. My husband is there, and my husband is looking at me like I've never seen anybody look at me before. And the police officer is very kind, and he understood. And he said, "Ma'am, you don't have to worry about that. Don't you worry. You're going to be with us. We'll protect you. You don't have to worry." So they practically dragged me into the store. It was pitiful. I'm in my late 20s. There I am. And my crutches are still on the sidewalk. And I heard somebody goes, "Who the heck's crutches are these?" I mean, at that part, it was just like, oh my gosh. And I'm like, "They're mine. I'm so sorry." And I'm limping into this place because now from all this running to this store and back and leaning down and crouching down and doing, what I was supposed to be doing and with her and trying to help out and so on and so forth, my hip was pretty inflamed at that time. So now I'm limping in there. They open the door, and there is this body covered up with a sheet. And the wall to the front of me was a mess. And they pulled back the sheet and said, "Do you know who he is?" Well, it was the man with the gun that had shot the lady. And I got to tell you, at that time, as horrible as it sounds, I was relieved, believe me, because I figured he would be out shooting someone else. I didn't know the backstory. So I looked at the officer, and there were plenty of police officers there, and this young man was there, and he was giving a statement, and he was shaking and crying, and it was just horrific. And this poor little boutique, it was adorable. And needless to say, I never did get my dress from there, right? Okay, so I looked at the police officer and I said, "I recognize him, but I do not recognize his brain that's on the wall." Now, why I would say that and why that came over me, I don't know. But there were probably about 2 or 3 police officers in there that started to laugh. And maybe it was one of those things that I just had to break the ice. I don't know. But they get me out of there, and he says, "Ma'am, you're going to have to come down to the police station." And my husband said, "Can't she go home first? Look at her. At least change her clothes." He said, "No, I'm sorry. We need to have you come down. We need to have you give a statement while it's fresh in your mind." And I said, "I guarantee you that it will be fresh in my mind for many, many years to come. And even now, this is 2022, telling this story, it was like yesterday when I saw this. And it affected me very, very badly." So I go to the police officer, or go to the police station, and I give my statement. And they're asking me these things, and I said, yes, he took out this 9mm gun. And the police officer looks at me and he goes, "Wait a minute, how do you know it was a 9mm? Well, my husband was on the, I guess, the gun club at ROTC, at the Ohio State University. And the shooting, we would always go to the shooting range and everything else. So I kind of knew the difference between. And so I don't know if it impressed him or whatever it was, but he just kind of looked at me funny. And then He took my statement, and that was it. And then I went home. Now, my husband took me home. Actually, he didn't. I'm sorry. They gathered my crutches because I wanted my car. My husband drove there from the base, so he followed me home, which was not very far. And when we got home, I noticed he kept looking at his watch. And I said, "What's going on?" And he said, "Well, why don't you go ahead and take a shower and I'll wait on you, but I've got to go back to the ship." Now, I was alone in that house, and I had just seen this. And by this time, it was like, I don't know, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. All of this goings on took all this time, and I was devastated. Well, he was the officer of the watch, and the captain would not allow him to take off the time to spend with me. And they were getting ready to go out to sea on the 30th of December, which was our wedding anniversary. So I wanted to spend as much time with him as I could, and especially under these circumstances, but the captain wouldn't let him. And so that really caused some issue. And the captain didn't really like him, and the captain's wife didn't really like me. And I'm going to take a little side trip here, as you know I always do, and tell you that every other officer's wives were teachers and nurses and lawyers. And then here is Lieutenant Commander so-and-so, whose wife is what? A psychic. On a prominent psychic line back then. So we had problems. We had some issues. We had problems. None of the other wives wanted to come around me. It scared people. And back then, this was the time where you would walk into a Barnes & Noble or any other bookstore, Books A Million, what have you, and they would have the psychic section, but they would name it as the occult, and it was in the back of the store, this wee little shelf, and you just felt weird even going back there to look at anything, because if anybody else was in the store and saw you, you would be getting freaked out eyes, you would be getting looks, you would be getting, yeah. So anyway, they were not happy with the whole setup. They can't tell you what to do. But I was making pretty good money back then, and I was doing my part for the community and for our Navy Wives Club and for the Enlisted Wives Club. So nobody really did say anything to me, and I had volunteered on base, and I was this paralegal for the JAG office, and I helped them when they went to court and all these things. So, yeah, it was frowned upon. So, my husband says goodbye to me, and actually he was going to be gone for like 2 or 3 days. And I had taken my shower and, ready for the day. And I had called my family, told them what happened, because there were reporters all over down at the scene. They wanted to see what was going on. And with that, I'll leave you just for a minute so we can have a word from our sponsor, Psychic Secrets. We'll be back in just a second. Don't miss the second part. Hi everyone, this is your friend Zelda Kelly, and I would like to take a minute to invite you to stop over to Psychic Secrets. That's www.psychicsecrets.com. There you can find an advisor that can help you with advice, direction, and guidance that you need. And also you can read our blog, which has a lot of really, really good little articles and information and can actually answer some questions for you. You can find us here on this same site, this Secrets Mystery Manor. We are there. So you're there already if you found us. But we also have another section, which is the Secrets Laws of Attraction. We have some wonderful videos up, and we would love to have you stop by and take a look at that. Now, I want you to know that Secrets really is here for helping the person. We have qualified, experienced advisors on call 24/7. We have the ability to chat. We have the ability to take a call and actually even a video call if you feel so inclined. So stop on by to psychicsecrets.com. That's www.psychicsecrets, that's two S's in the middle now, psychicsecrets.com, and take advantage of our first time offer. For those of you who have never called before, first time customer, we have an offering of 30 minutes for $30. You know, we can get a lot accomplished in 30 minutes. I'm so glad that you stopped by today to listen to Secrets Mystery Manor. And I hope you take the invitation to come on over and check out our advisors. We're here for you. So thank you so much. And hopefully I'll see you soon and you'll see me on there. I'm extension 11. So back to our podcast. Bye for now. Okay, and thank you so much to Psychic Secrets for sponsoring this episode of Secrets Mystery Manor. Okay, so now back to our story. I'm talking to my family. I'm telling them what was going on. My mother's birthday was the next day. And that was the other thing that I kept thinking of is, oh my goodness, I cannot be shot or even worse, killed the day before my mother's birthday, right? I mean, hello. Just can't be happening. So now my husband leaves. I'm now off the phone. My family is like, why don't you come down? Why don't you come down? Well, I can tell you, I just did not even feel like leaving. I wanted to make sure that I was okay with my job. And the JAG lieutenant called me, had heard what had happened on the news. My picture was on the evening edition of the paper. So believe me, everybody who was anybody that I knew saw what was happening and going on. He calls me and asks me if I'm okay, asks me if he and his wife could come and take me to dinner, and I just didn't feel like it. As the sun started setting, and one side of our house that was, you could see the dock and you could actually see Fort Sumter out in the water. It was all glass doors on the one side of the house. It was quite beautiful. I walked up to the doors to start closing the draperies for the evening, and I saw a man standing out by the deck. And I thought, who on earth is that? I mean, this couldn't be a neighbor. Who is that? And I stood there and looked at him for a while, and he turned his head and looked at me, and half of his head was gone. And I dropped to the floor, and I just screamed. I mean, if anybody could have heard me, because I knew what had happened. So I pulled the draperies closed, and I ran to the other side of the house. I ran into the kitchen, and I look out the window, and he's standing there. I run to the other side of the house, and I did not see him, and I thought, okay, maybe it's just a figment of my imagination. Okay, fine. So we had this little sitting room, and where we had our stereo, right? Our records, right? And our TV. And I thought, I'm just going to make something to eat. I'm going to sit here and watch TV. And that was it. All of a sudden, I hear a noise outside the window. And I look out the window, and there's this same man. Now, who is this man? This is the man who was the shooter. And he had been thumping around my house all night. I literally was sitting on the floor with my back up against the sofa, lights out, TV on, phone near me, and I thought, what am I going to do? I can't call the police. They're going to think I'm crazy. So I called my husband on the ship, and I said, you've just got to do something to come home. And I explained to him what was happening. Now, he was a non-believer. Believe me, that was an issue. So the first thing that's running through his mind is that I'm experiencing some severe shock. And listen, I don't doubt it. I'm sure I was. But at that time, I had just got done with my studies at the Edgar Cayce Foundation in Virginia, and we had moved to Charleston. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I just couldn't think of anybody to call. And of course, we didn't have cell phones. It was all landlines and, all this. And every time I would pick up the landline, the receiver, my stomach would just flop because it would sound staticky on the other end. So I knew something was trying to manifest and send me a message or get to me or something. Finally, it was late at night. I called my JAG officer, lieutenant, and I said, I literally need to talk to somebody about something. And I told him what was going on. He gave me the name of a friend of his who actually was a priest in Charleston. And I called him. It was late at night. It was like 10:30 at night. And he answered the phone. And I said, hello, I know Lieutenant so-and-so. He gave me your number. I witnessed a shooting today. And he says, oh, you poor thing. I read about it in this evening's paper. And he said, are you seeing someone? Now, I broke down at that point because it was a relief to know that I had someone who actually trusted my experience and trusted my thought pattern. And I said, yes, as a matter of fact, I am. I said, and I explained the situation. I was seeing the shooter. I was seeing, blah, 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 this and that and the other. And he says, well, I want you to know that the reason probably is because you were the last person that he saw before he committed these acts. And I said, yeah, but I don't know if that's a fair analogy because there was another man in the store. And he said, no, in the paper it says that he turned and looked at you. It gave an account of what you had told the police officers. And I said, yes, that's very true. And he said, that's what it is. And he said, I will say prayers. And he said, basically, at that time, I was using salt and sage and prayers and everything you could think of to blessings. And he told me that he would bring me holy water and some blessed oil the next day, but he didn't have to. So within 3 days, this man was gone. And the lieutenant JAG officer told me that the backstory of this was that this man was a lawyer. His wife wanted a divorce because he had been violent and all this, and the little boy was their 4-year-old boy. And he lost his law license because he was so violent, and they suspended him because he had just done some things I wasn't really sure of, and to this day I don't know. But they were in a big custody battle, and he was selling insurance. And basically he went into the store and said, if I cannot have my son, you cannot either. And thank God he waited. It was her mother that walked out of the store that day with this little boy. Now, every December 11th, I think of him. And he would be in his late 30s now. And I've always wondered about him, and I've always hoped that he's had a wonderful life. It was her parents who raised him. And afterwards, this lady lingered on until January. Now, remember, this was December 11th, and in January, it was about mid January, I was going down to the hospital. I was never able to see her. I did not speak to the family, but I was down there. And one of the hospital workers came out and told me one day that the family had decided to pull the plug. Was brain dead, but they kept her alive with hope that she had just kept giving signs of, that she had brain activity and so forth, but it just kept getting worse. And unfortunately, she lost her life. So, my dears, that is the story of the murder, the suicide, and the unwanted guest. And I can tell you, the unwanted guest was about as unnerving as the whole episode of seeing this woman shot. And the whole entire situation was just horrible. Later on, that the captain's wife thought I was going crazy because I didn't want to participate with anything in the wives' club, and suggested that I be admitted to some type of a mental hospital. But I know what that was all about. So obviously I didn't go. My husband asked for a transfer and was able to get it, and we happily left and were transferred back to Virginia. So that story, and I wanted to share it with you because maybe someone out there has had a similar story, and I want you to know that it's okay. This is a part of life happening, and maybe sometimes the bad part of life happening. And just know that you're not alone if you see something like this. But I want to take the time and thank you so much for listening to Secrets Mystery Manor, and I want to thank Psychic Secrets as well. And I want to invite you over to my Facebook page. It's House of Psychic Zelda, and we have a lot of fun there. And I'm able to post little offers that Psychic Secrets gives us from time to time, and you can take advantage of those. So I want to thank you, and you be well today. You be blessed, and you have a very brave heart. I know you do. And I look forward to talking with you on the next Secrets Mystery Manor. I'll see you soon. Bye for now. Until next time, thanks so much for listening. I just love this, don't you?